It is 3:45, late at night, and two primates are about to take a nap. On one side, there is a chimp who, after a long day of running chimp-related errands with his friends, decides that it's high time he should go to bed. On the other side, it's me, an intern doctor, who is at his 20th hour in a 36-hour call, about to take a nap. Now, both of us do not know it, but in the next 5 minutes, we are going to be in the same physiological state. Cut to the said next 5 minutes, and the chimp is out there running for his life while being chased by a predator who wants to have him for a late night snack. On my side, I get a call to review a patient whose condition has suddenly changed. I walk into the room where the patient is, and chaos erupts. Instantly, I am bombarded with a high-pitched noise of the alarm, the screeching sounds of the tires of a crash cart being opened. On one side, I get told the information, what happened to the patients. On the other side, I'm asked for the information, what's going to happen to the patient. Obviously, I panic. I go out and call my second on call. Now, for those of you who are not aware, a second on call is a supervising doctor who is the person you consult if things are about to get out of hand. So I make the call. And the response I get is, sorry, the number you've dialed is not reachable. Please try again later. I wait for a few minutes and try again later. And this time I swear the response was with a little bit of more attitude to it. The response was, I just told you the number you've dialed is not reachable. Please try again later. So it is at this moment where I get a very familiar feeling. A feeling that has nothing to do with medicine. And although most of you might not even know this machine or how it works, I bet we are familiar with this feeling. It's very common. First, you lose sensation to your feet. Your feet aren't gone, you just don't feel them anymore. Then second, your arms get sweaty. The air is 3 times, 4 times heavier than it used to be just a few minutes ago. You're trying to take a deep breath, but it's coming halfway. And for some reason, a solitary bead of sweat runs slowly down the course of your back, only to be joined by other beads of sweat which drench you in sweat. Now, we might not share knowledge in medicine, but I do believe this feeling is common. But the worst thing of all is the silence that follows this feeling. It's not the silence that prevails in the room. It's the silence that happens in your mind, where all the prior preparations you made, all the plans you made on how you're going to handle such a situation vanish. And you are left there as if you had no prior preparation. But why? Why does this happen to us? Why, despite preparing, planning, why do we choke? And why do we freeze when you're faced with pressure? Well, attempts have been made to explain this, but one of the better attempts made was by an author and a scientist and a researcher called Daniel Kahneman, who, among other things, is popular for his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where he introduces a concept of 2 systems in our thinking. System 1 and System 2. He introduces System 1 as a fast, automatic, and habitual system, and System 2 as a more slow, more deliberate, and more logical systems. Now, these systems alternate and are useful for different situations. Well, for the chimp being chased by a predator, system 1 is obviously useful. You want to be fast and quick on your feet. But when you're trying to manage a patient who has just collapsed, you need system 2. But the irony is when we have no pressure, it is system 2, the more logical system, that prevails. So we plan, we prepare, we are sure of ourselves that we are ready. But the moment pressure is added into the equation, system 2 takes a back seat, and we are left at the mercy of system 1. So we do not rise up to the level of the planning and preparation, but we fall down to the level of our habits and what we are used to. Cut back to the same room. I have attempted to call the second on call, but to no avail. There is no response. And I'm left here with a man whose life, dreams, goal and all are left depending on the next few decisions in the next few minutes and the quality of those decisions. But you see, pressure has a way of affecting the way we make decisions. It introduces biases both at the moment, immediately, where it's the acute effects, and it also introduces biases more long-term, more chronically. At the moment, pressure introduces the following biases. The first being risk aversion. So at that situation, instead of thinking of what is needed to be done at that moment, when we are under pressure, we tend to spiral down into a path where we think of the consequences that will happen in the next day, hour, and even next 10 years. Now, you might wonder, well, isn't this a good thing? Don't you want to be able to think of the possible outcomes of your decisions? Well, that is a good thing, but what happens is, under pressure, we tend to put more weight, to put disproportionate amount of weight to the negative outcomes instead of the positive outcomes. What this then leads us to do is, instead of acting or making decisions from a rational standpoint, we make decisions based on fear of what might happen. The second thing that happens is that pressure makes a very benign, very objective situation about us. So instead of thinking of a situation objectively, it becomes a test of our self-worth, a test of our intelligence, and a test of our value. Instead of becoming a situation which could be handled objectively, it becomes an attack on one's identity. And the moment one's identity is being attacked, all clarity leaves the room. The third way pressure affects us is it turns us into perfectionists. And yes, in case you're wondering, the IST is intentional. So it makes us focused and fixated on one and one outcome alone, where any deviation from that outcome is immediately interpreted as failure. And yes, again, I am talking about that classmate who is unhappy with a 98% on their test results. So how do we solve these biases that have been introduced by pressure? Well, one is a time collapse. And I'm not talking about the actual physics time collapse, no. This is a time collapse where, instead of wondering of the outcomes that might happen in the next 10 years, the next 1 hour, the next 5 days, you only think of what is needed to be done right now. What you need to do right now. What is the next step that you need to do? What this does is it takes away the big problem that you're faced and breaks it down into a step-by-step process which you can follow through. This removes the overwhelming effect of all those possibilities that have not yet come to pass. Another solution is viewing the situation as a third person would view it. You view the situation as an objective situation that requires your response. Whether it's the first question on difficult exam or the last question on a difficult interview. Whether you're saving a life or a relationship, you view this objectively. And the third solution is to prioritize the process over the outcome. Because the outcome is dependent on our efforts and circumstances that are outside of our control. Prioritizing the process over the outcome allows you to be, one, adaptable to changes that you are not anticipating, and it also allows you to celebrate the different steps of the process. That means despite not getting the right outcome that you wanted, you can celebrate that you carried out the process with integrity. Now we're done. At this moment, we're done, and all of you can now handle pressure with ease. That's it. Not really. Well, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. You see, what we have discussed right now has entered the second system. You know, the one that plans and prepares. We now know the logical steps on how to handle pressure. But again, we just talked about it. The moment pressure steps in, that second system takes the back seat, and it's the first system. So how do we get these solutions, these frameworks and tactics into the first system? How do we make them habitual? Well, the solution is the stress inoculation. What this means is you place yourself intentionally into situations with pressure. You apply for opportunities that you think you're underqualified for. You take classes that you think you're not smart enough for. You go out of your way and make a friend out of a stranger. Just don't get into the car with them or take candy from them. But you push yourself in situations where you're faced with pressure and you're tasked to face that pressure with composure. And maybe with these tactics, they can become the navigation system you need to take the first step into a more adventurous and courageous life. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adolar Patrick. Wait, I was told to introduce myself as my name is Dr. Adolar Patrick. And for your time and attention, thank you very much.